Hello, everybody. My name is Graham Elwood, and you are watching the Political Vigilante, making Gotham great again, even if Gotham doesn't want to be great. I feel like America, on the whole, doesn't want to be better. America just wants to complain and blame the red state blames the blue states, and the blue states blame the red state, and everyone just fights, and it's dumb, and nobody wants to learn. I don't know. That's what it feels like to me. That's what it feels like to me. But a great way to support the show, because I haven't gone insane. I haven't gone down a ludicrous wingnut rabbit hole of confirmation bias. Support what we do. If you want to drink Kool-Aid and be in a cult, that this isn't the show for you. So one way to support the show is do what Crafty Geek has done and go to patreon.com/Graham Elwood, where you can submit videos like this. Now, what we're going to show you is this woman who's a big environmentalist from Canada, and she's going to be talking about Canada specifically, but how carbon credits is this thing that corporations talk about, but it's actually bullshit. It's more what we talk about this on the show a lot. Greenwashing. I try to do at least one environmental video a week. Because we are facing climate collapse, and a bunch of billionaires are building rockets, and they're going to try to just fly themselves out of here while we all burn to death. Like, literally, that's what's happening. That's what's happening. But, cool. Super Bowl's this weekend. So just we're not going to listen to the whole TED Talk, but we're going to listen to a couple minutes and then kind of break it down. Wow, that's fancy.
Canada's great northern forests, they're the place of my heart. They hold 25% of the Earth's wetlands, and they're the nesting and breeding ground of the majority of North America's songbirds. They're the traditional territories of hundreds of Indigenous nations. And my climate journey started here as a forest activist a long time ago. I was horrified that Canada's old-growth forests are being logged. They're burning. They're being destroyed by beetle infestations. But also because so much of the forest is under threat because of what lies under it: oil. At the time, I thought that Canada's failed.
To be fair, all those trees and songbirds shouldn't have set up their forests below a bunch of oil, that oil company. You know what I mean? That's the oil company's oil. So don't set up your pretty little wetlands above oil. You know what I mean? It's like Iraq, Iran should have never put their countries above American oil. You know what I mean? I'm just playing, everyone's got to own their part in it.
To reduce emissions was because we had a government that just didn't believe in climate change. But then in 2015, we elected a new government. And Prime Minister Trudeau came to Paris, and with his hand on his heart, he said, Canada's back. And he went home to introduce some really good climate policy, carbon pricing, and our emissions didn't go down. And the government continued to greenlight and even subsidize new oil sands, pipelines, and fracking. And that, for me, was the moment when I realized where one of the big problems lie. Our governments are regulating emissions, but not the production of fossil fuels. You see, climate policy and agreements, they're complicated, but what's simple is that the majority of emissions that are trapped in our atmosphere today, well, they come from three products: oil, gas, and coal. For decades, our countries have been negotiating targets. But behind our backs, the fossil fuel industry has been growing production and locking in further emissions. I started reaching out to climate policy experts from around the world because I wanted to understand what frameworks exist to negotiate who gets to produce what and how much? What policies help governments regulate, constrain the production side of fossil fuels? I found out that very few do. I will never forget the day that I sat with the Paris Agreement and I searched for the words fossil fuels, oil, gas, coal. They didn't appear, not even once, in the world's climate agreement.
Isn't that funny? The Paris Climate Agreement doesn't have those words. Gee, I wonder if the fossil fuel industry spent a little money to get some politicians to write those words out of it. I don't know. I mean, thank God Joe Biden was going to COP26, so we could, he got his nap time in. That was good. Biden really handled that. He's the best napping world leader we've got. The world is on fire. People are dying. There's climate is affecting money. It's affecting government's abilities to govern. It's affecting national security. It's affecting people's children's health. And Joe Biden went to sleep.
The fossil fuel industry has been successful in making itself invisible. I started reaching out and met with, for several years, the CEOs of major oil companies, because I wanted to understand, what do these CEOs see when they read the science? How can they justify expanding oil and gas at this moment in our history? And also because I believe that there are good people everywhere. There are good people stuck in some bad systems. What I learned is that they know. They know that we're going to have to wind down fossil fuel production. But they are all holding out hope that they will be the last barrel sold, or that unproven technologies like carbon capture and storage will allow them to continue to increase production. The problem is, the math just doesn't add up. We are currently on track today to produce 120% more fossil fuels in the next decade than the world should burn if we want to stay below 1.5 degrees Celsius. In fact, even if we phased out coal overnight, oil and gas in existing projects would take us beyond 1.5 degrees.
This is something I've talked about since the inception, since I started doing this show 5 years ago, which is in 2015 or 2016, I believe. The head of the Bank of England talked about the carbon bubble. And what he talked about was all these fossil fuel, the investment. The reason why, one of the things, I don't know if she's going to get into it, but why there's so much more, as she just showed us, construction and more projects, is because that keeps investment dollars coming in. That's why all these CEOs are like, yeah, we know we got to do something about it, but we're going to, because if the whole world, and America would have to lead this world, and believe me, Russia and China are not clean countries either. And they make, that's Russia's number one export is oil. Number two is weapons. And most of it is to Western Europe and China. But if all these major countries said, we have to pivot away from fossil fuels, then the investment money pulls out, and then that bubble collapses. So this is another bubble. I've talked about this bubble numerous times on the show, the carbon bubble. And when people all pull all this money out, the bubble collapses. That's why they're always like, no, we're not there yet. Yeah, we'll have to transition eventually, but new pipeline project, new drilling project. Why do you think Joe Biden approved more drilling permits in his first year in office than Trump did? Do you think that's a mistake? That's because they give Joe Biden, the Democrats, a lot of money, just like they give the Republicans a lot of money. The Democrats are the biggest sham of the two parties. The Republicans are just flat out evil. Trump's whole cabinet was climate change deniers. I mean, he was firing guys left and right because he's a crybaby, but for the most part, his cabinet was all climate change denial. The Republican Party kind of openly denies climate change, right? Which is like bad and evil. And I said, okay, so Biden's going to come in and he, if Trump would have won, we'd all be dead from climate collapse in 2040, but Biden, we're going to die in 2045, right? That's the joke I always make, because that's the incremental centrists that run the Democratic Party just want to show this much. We changed we're just this much better than the Republicans, but it's still going to get us all killed. But this is what I want to show you. This is so much money is involved. So much money is involved. That's why this is all scam. This carbon, and she's going to show you in a second how the numbers don't add up, because it's all carbon credits and cap and trade. It's all bullshit. We need to get off fossil fuel. Done. No. Stop drilling. No more oil permits. No more coal mines. Shut them down. An effective, properly administered Green New Deal would transition all of these people. Let's say you're making $50,000 a year as a coal miner or working at an oil refinery. You will get that. The government will give you $50,000 as you get retrained into the green energy sector, which would make a lot of money for people and provide a lot of jobs. But, capitalism wants to kill us all and not care.
For decades, climate policy has been designed on a theory that we're going to reduce demand, that the price of carbon is going to go up, and the markets, turbocharged by alternatives, wind and solar, now cheaper than fossil fuels, well, the markets are going to constrain supply. The problem is, it's not happening.
Oil is about $100 a barrel right now. Just to give her real time, I don't know when she recorded this, like last year or something, but just as of today, oil is about $100 a barrel.
Fast enough to keep us safe. Why? Because the markets today are distorted. They're distorted by tax breaks and fossil fuel subsidies, but also because of the power of the fossil fuel industry, the influence of the industry, who no longer deny climate change, but they have moved from denial to delusion. That technologies that are not yet proven at scale, that are not yet cost competitive, are going to fix it in the future. I've spent 30 years running environmental campaigns. I've advised multiple governments on climate policy. I've been arrested on the blockades, and I've negotiated in the boardrooms of some of the largest banks and corporations in the world. And when I figured out that we don't have a framework for constraining the production of fossil fuels, I thought I was crazy. And so did some of my colleagues. But here's the thing. Today, we are granting permits. We are spending trillions of dollars to increase the production of products that we say we're transitioning off of. It's not a transition if we're still growing the problem. We have more than enough.
This is the person that's, 200 pounds overweight. That's like, well, now I'm going to get a Diet Coke when I go get the value meal. I mean, this is just token gestures. I mean, it's just, we do this in the Build Back Better plan. There's all this money for green infrastructure. I mean, they're supposed to build new chargers for electric vehicles, but that's not enough. It's not enough. And she's telling you this. There's no infrastructure to curb production. They want to pull every last drop and every last ounce of coal out of the earth and sell it and frack it and squeeze it out. And then we'll transition. Once it's all done, well, that will all be dead. A huge chunk of a glacier just broke off last week. Sea levels are rising. We have contaminated water in over 2,000 cities in America at levels like Flint, Michigan. We've got the Navy contaminating water at Red Hill on the island of Oahu in Hawaii. Like, what? All for profit, all for war? All right.
Fossil fuels in existing installations, even if we stopped expansion today, of oil, gas, and coal in existing projects to use while we carefully manage a phase down. And so the world is spending its intellectual, its financial, its technical capital to dig up stuff that we know we can't burn. And if we do, it will burn us. So what do? A year ago, a group of academics, advocates, scientists, and former diplomats came together to create the Fossil Fuel Non-Proliferation Treaty Initiative, to create the missing framework so countries can negotiate a wind down of fossil fuels in a way that is fair, in a way that is equitable. Shockingly, one of the things we found out is that we don't have accounting or transparency right now on who's producing what and how much. So work is now underway to create a global registry of fossil fuel production and reserves. We are also at work creating the principles of equity that have to underlie a treaty, because the challenges to stop the expansion of fossil fuels in some countries are going to be so different than in other countries. There are countries today in the developing world, like Ecuador, that are drilling for new oil in the heart of the Amazon just to feed their debt. So no, we can.
That's where Bitcoin can solve that. She brings up very valid points about the transitioning, out of this, because we are so dependent upon not just fossil fuel production, but the global economy. That's what that governor of the Bank of England was talking about, the carbon bubble, right? So the petrodollar, we've talked about that numerous times on this show, and how that really influences global markets. And it's not just the oil companies, the coal mining companies, it's the banks. And then you look at sanctions and the IMF and how it can force a country like Ecuador to be poor, to where it has to keep drilling. And then they force countries to go into this poverty, so then American oil companies can come in and say, well, we'll give you some money for your oil. And we see what happens when countries who have rich oil reserves like Venezuela go, we want to nationalize this and give the oil profits to our citizens and make schools and social services better and get rid of poverty. Oh, nope, you're part of the axis of evil. Wait, what? I mean, we're part of the problem. So, and the thing, and we're not gonna watch anymore, but the thing, because she brings up great points, and I'll put the link to the whole speech if you want to watch it below. But when I hear this, like, well, it's going to take time and this and that, I always go, really? Because I said this 2 years ago, when COVID really just took over the world and everybody shut down. Governments just shut stuff down. And a lot of governments just started providing money for their people. Like, we could do this if we treated it as urgently as we did COVID. Now, you can debate and argue all these countries, America included, has done this or that wrong in the handling of COVID, of course. But that's not what I'm bringing up, is to debate that. I'm telling you, though, we saw governments all over the world act like quickly to handle this. We could do that with climate change. America could be the leader in saving the human race. But if we don't, and we keep fumbling around like greedy little assholes and hoping that corporations who control the politicians are going to somehow act in our best interests while they're literally flying rockets around the planet. 2 billionaires have rockets. More billionaires are building rockets. What do you think SpaceX is? It's so Elon Musk can fly his billionaire buddies off of this planet while it collapses. We could do it. The whole world could do it. We could transition the whole world off of fossil fuels. The UN released a report in 2018 saying we have 12 years. We have until 2030 to get off of fossil fuels. And if we don't, it's going to be too late. We've got 8 years. The last 4 years, we've done dick. Nothing. We could do it, but we're running out of time. And I applaud this woman and the organization she works for and stuff like that, but we don't have time to like dick around with treaties and this and that. General strike, shut it down. It's only going to get worse. When we're evacuating, millions of people from Florida or the East Coast because of flooding. When every summer we do this, the brush fires on the West Coast are bad. The hurricanes in the Gulf states are bad. The flooding is bad. Record tornadoes in December in Kentucky and those states. Record tornadoes. All right. Just when the White House is flooded, when the CEOs of these companies' homes are flooded, when their kids get cancer from contaminated water, is that when they'll wake up? I don't know, but we're running out of time. I see why Greta's so pissed off. I'm furious, and I'm not that young. I got 6 nieces and nephews, age, I think, 14 to 22. I don't know what their future is going to look like. Are any of them going to see their 50th birthdays? I'm being serious. Like, it terrifies me. All right. Do what we can, I guess. The Democrats aren't going to do it. The Republicans certainly aren't going to do it. It's another reason to vote third party. It's another reason for direct actions. It's another reason for labor unions. It's another reason to do more stuff like that, to shut it down. So I don't know. Follow the money, connect the dots, get the truth, everybody. Shave your knuckles for justice. Hey, everybody. Thanks for watching. We are still in our 9th month of demonetization from YouTube. So support what we're doing at patreon.com/Graham Elwood or rockfin.com/Graham Elwood, which is a blockchain cryptocurrency platform. It's free to sign up, and there's a premium level at $10 a month. And for that, you get everybody on the platform's premium content. Myself, Lee Camp, Ron Placone, Jimmy Dore, Whitney Webb, Kim Iverson, Abby Martin, and many, many others. You can also support what we're doing at Venmo at Graham-Elwood and go to GrahamElwood.com. We have a PayPal button and a PO box. I also have crypto wallets, which are all in the show notes. Thanks for supporting what we do.